Hello and welcome to episode 114 of Writing in the Weeds. And you are here, as always, with Tash, that's me, and Jenny. Say hi, Jenny.
Hello.
And today we are going to be diving into the idea of imperfectly perfect and in alignment. And really, we're just having a conversation because we're going to free flow this one and see where we end up. If you've joined us before, welcome. Thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate you popping in and joining us every week. We love being here with you. And if you have discovered us recently and you're new, quick introduction. As I said, I am Natasha Lockie. I am a business builder, mountain bike coach, a life performance coach, and about to adventure into probably one of the scariest moments of my life in my forward projection. So we're going to talk about that a little bit. And as I said, I'm here with Jenny, who's going to introduce herself, and then we'll get rocking and rolling.
Yeah, I'm Jenny Brandon. I'm an animal communicator and energy healer for animals and their people too. I work intuitively with pets to help bring forward what's going on in their life and their perspective on things so that the two of you can get into a better space together and have more harmony in your lives.
All right, so yeah, we're just having a conversation this morning. We are trying to get in a couple of podcast episodes so that I can hit the road because I am on my way to Mexico. And this is the first time I've done this particular journey without a parachute. And last year, we started heading south, and I actually made what I feel like was a mistake, but everything we do for a reason. We have experiences along the way, but I was really scared. This time last year, I felt the exact same way as I do right now. Oh my God, how do I go to Mexico? I have to get myself positioned to really step into the job that I want to do, create the business I want to create. And I freaked out, and we ended up going and getting a job, which honestly cost us as much as we made. And it wasn't right. So this time, we're just gonna we're just gonna trust, and we're just gonna go, and we're gonna see what happens. And it's terrifying. And I sometimes
Yep.
feel that way when I get on the mat and I'm going to do a 45-minute yoga class and I have no idea what's coming. And I'm like, oh my God, am I going to be able to make it through this? However, in yoga, you can kind of go into child's pose, whereas in this situation,
You can cheat and go into child's pose and just stop in fetal position if you need to along the way.
you know what's really interesting though? You just said you can cheat. And that is
Yeah, I
one
did.
thing that they talk about in yoga is
There is no
that there
cheating.
isn't cheating, and it's taking rest when it's needed, and
Yeah.
it's about knowing where you are. And so we were just chatting about like getting the positions right, and that yes, you cannot get the positions perfect, but you also need to be in alignment. And then the other part of that is doing the practice as you need to. And Jenny can tell the story, but I feel like that probably speaks a lot to your 20-minute power yoga that you weren't meaning to do. That both of you kind of came out of it feeling a little bit injured because you think going into child pose is cheating. To be honest, so do I. But I'm just calling you out on what you said.
Yeah, no, well, and it's that really fine line of pushing ourselves to see what we are capable of and finding out where our own edge is. We just got back from vacation, and since we had the opportunity to have days that had zero structure to them and zero need to be anywhere doing anything at any time, we took advantage of that and were playing around with doing some yoga in the morning. And I'm kind of leaving it up to Ed to pick things out and do what he's interested in because I did yoga for, I don't know, 4 years, 3 years pretty solidly. So I have quite a bit of experience. I know what I like, I know what I enjoy, but I also want this to be something that he's interested in, and I can pretty much go along for the ride because I've been doing it long enough that like I'm good with it. Well, he is scrolling through and he picks a 20-minute morning power yoga. And I was like, do you really think you want to do that? He's like, yeah, let's try. And I'm like, okie dokie. I know what we're in for. I've been there. I did hot vinyasa flow yoga for a while, as that was the class that I had. My time slot was in volunteering. Thank goodness that was towards the end of my 3 years of volunteering at that point. So I was pretty well experienced. I knew my own limits and I knew when to, majorly back down on poses, and I knew how to adjust everything. So it was not a problem per se, but I'm rusty. I'll admit it's been a long time. And so we get into it, and there were quite a lot of plank pose. And I am not a fan of plank because I really messed up my shoulders and my rhomboids years ago doing yoga, doing too many planks. And so I tend to stay away from that pose because I just don't have the core stability at this point. So we did some, and like later that day, I was like, dude, my shoulders hurt. I was like, this is not good. And we finished the 20 minutes though, and I did most of it pretty well, what they were asking, with some modifications to the planks and stuff. And of course, by the time we're done, Eddie's like drenched in sweat. I'm definitely really, really warm at this point. And he was like, wow, that was a lot. Or I was like, yep. Don't ever let anybody tell you yoga is not a workout. It is absolutely 100% a workout. And that's not the intention per se of the quote practice, but it absolutely is. So it was interesting though. We ended up doing it. We did something most mornings. I showed him how to find the gentle yin morning flow, which was much better. But even the funny thing about that was the last morning we were doing one, and it kind of drives me nuts when in a practice they sort of get stuck on one pose and you keep going back to it and back to it and back to it. And this one happened to be like, lace your fingers together, invert them, and then raise your arms over your head. And we must have done it like, it felt like 20 times in 20 minutes. And every time we'd go back to it, I'm like, do we really have to do this again? Like, we already just did it. My shoulders, I struggle with my shoulders. Really, I don't want to do it again. But it's that challenge of you're following someone's guidance and you want to push yourself, you want to expand. And so you try to do the things. And it is very challenging to make sure that you're listening to your body in those moments. And Ed ended up pulling a muscle in his neck in the process of all of these, like, raise your arms over your head again thing. And so it's really difficult to be okay going, you know what, I'm not putting my hands over my head again. I'm just not doing it. I will wave them somewhere else. I will do something else, especially when you don't have a teacher present that can give you a modification on the fly. When you're in person class, a lot of times if they see you struggling, they'll be like, as an alternative, you can do blah, blah, blah. And that's very helpful. But when you're watching a video, you don't get that luxury. So yeah, finding that balance of being okay when everyone else around you is doing something different and they're following the quote instructions and you want to lay down in child's pose. Like the number of times at the end you're working your way through the practice, and at the end of the 20 minutes they're finally like, okay, and lay back on your back and stretch your legs out. And I'm like, I love you, floor. I love the floor so much.
I hate it when you go into a pose that looks like it's going to be Shavasana and they're like, don't get excited. You're not there yet. Really?
Yeah.
And I was thinking about mountain biking, and there's a few things in there. That's like when you think you're at the top of the hill and you're not actually at the top of the hill. You're like, I look like I was. No, more. I'm so done. What you said there at one point about being in a group, it's interesting because some of the videos, they're just by themselves. And then with Travis, in the 30 and 30 and the 45 and 45 are group classes that they're teaching the group class, and it's videoed. And these are probably teachers, or I have no idea who the people are in the group. But anyway, what I actually love is because there is a group there, they will actually modify. Or they'll point out that one of the students is doing a modified version. Like, you could do this.
Nice.
And they'll be like, oh, and this person actually did that. Or I'll look up and see that one of the people on the screen is not doing the hardest version of the pose. And in my mind, I'm like, well, these people are being videoed, so they're obviously all perfect yogis. And then there's been other times when I've looked up and I've been doing a pose and I'm like completely bent over, and Travis is talking about how modifying it this way and this way. And I'm like, why would I do that? I'm practically got my forehead on my feet. And then I look and I see how much he's not struggling, but how many more modifications he's having to make in that pose. And arguably, this is the teacher and he's been doing it forever, so shouldn't he be doing everything perfectly? What is perfect would be where I would come from with that one. And then I do the other side and I'm like, oh, I see why I want all those blocks. And that idea of a group energy versus a single energy, you can actually get that by doing an online class that's with a group, like where the teachers actually, because they will see other things, but also you start to get that permission to do things in different ways because there's more than just one person that's in it doing it. And I think that's what I really loved about mountain bike coaching as well. So if I had a group, they ping ponged off each other and they would make each other feel better about where they were at, because you could see that everybody had their own version of what they were doing and what they were capable of. And we all have our strengths and we all have our weaknesses, and they vary from person to person, like injuries, mindset, what your day was like that day, and just the idea of being able to actually be in alignment with where you're at and what you're needing for that particular day is probably the key to what we're talking about here. And that whole idea of not pushing for some expectation of where everybody else is at when you have no idea. Like, my relationship sucks because blah, blah, blah. And you're then judging it because you saw a couple walking down the street holding hands, or I'm just making this up. But, you know, it's like we get these ideals in our head and we watch the movie that's playing outside of us, and then we relate it somehow to what we're doing. And it's not true. You kind of have this expectation that the yoga teacher is somebody, something, is able to do whatever. And it's incredible how just by putting yourself in a teacher role, you become the expert. And then you feel like you need to be perfect. And you're doing a podcast and you actually need to have a topic ready for the day that you're going to talk about.
Yeah. It's funny how when you make decisions like that, suddenly there's expectations and requirements that you place upon yourself that are often not necessarily true or are not required at all, really, but we have this idea in our heads that this is how it should look or it should be. There's the S word again. That is not helpful.
Yeah.
And I like the yoga practice because it does require you to show up as you are every single day. And it really does teach you very quickly how to manage your own limits and be aware of that so that you can make an adjustment before something happens, so that you are protecting yourself, you're staying safe, you're staying in alignment in a way that keeps your body functioning. Our bodies all have alignment that will allow them to move easily and efficiently in the best way possible. If you're not following that, that is how you get injured. And you can just as easily get injured in yoga as you can in anything else. Absolutely. And it's a matter of whether or not you're listening to your body and whether or not you're listening to those signals. And the reality is all of this applies to anything we're doing, whether it is a physical sport, it's mountain biking, it's yoga, it's horse riding, it's working with your dog, or it's a business pursuit or relationships or interactions with other people or anything else. It is just as easy to quote injure yourself by expanding your business too hard too fast as it is to do it in yoga by trying to push yourself into a pose that your body isn't ready for. And it's respecting the nervous system, because really the nervous system works the same way, whether you're talking about a physical activity or whether you're talking about a mental, emotional thing that is not even tangible, like online business or even in another job in some other situation. It's all the same. And the faster you can learn to recognize those things and feel them and go, oh, wait, there's an alarm bell telling me that the action I'm taking is too much of a stretch and something is going to snap, I need to back down. I need to make a modification. I need to make an adjustment. And what I love in yoga is that you never not do it.
Yeah.
You just modify it so that your body is able to handle it. So you go to the limit of your body, and then you add support, you add bolsters, you add blocks, you use blankets, use a strap to reach your feet if you can't reach them, whatever it is, you make a modification with support.
Yeah.
And I feel like if we could apply that rule to so many other places in our lives, that we would all see so much more success so much more quickly, because we're willing to reach for support when we do hit our limit. We're not running from the limit.
Yeah.
We're just reaching for the things that are going to allow us to stay in that space and expand through that discomfort, so that our nervous system learns, oh, this is not a problem. This is just the edge of our comfort zone, and now we're going to expand our comfort zone.
Well, and I think it's the idea, like just before you mentioned something, I think before we popped on, and I remember watching, like, it was talking about like yoga being a workout, and maybe that's not the intention of yoga, but it is the outcome. And I remember seeing some reel, and it was like, if you are doing yoga as a workout, you're doing it wrong. You will get a workout while doing yoga, but the purpose of the yoga is not to come at it like this is my exercise practice. And I think that that's the same with everything. The intention, like, you will get a side benefit from anything you do. However, if we come at everything like it's just a learning experience, it's a practice, it's a work practice. I am designing a course in a new program, and we didn't have the email set up. I couldn't even set up emails because the domain wasn't there yet. And so I set everything else up just to discover, and of course they didn't tell me this in any of the training programs that I looked at. The help is just phenomenally unhelpful. And what I've discovered is, with various different things, you can save master blocks, you can save templates and sell them to people on this program. I'm not sure how, because I can't find the save as template button. And I go to do these emails. I have 41 emails that need to be done daily. I want them all to look exactly the same with different words. And I discover that if I had set the first email up when I set up the first lesson, I would have duplicated it. But I didn't, because I couldn't. And now I have to go through and do 5 horizontal lines in this color and this and that. And it's frustrating. But at the same time, I've learned some solid lessons. And, you know, when you can hold things a little bit in that lightly way of being, and you can be like, okay, this sucks, but I won't make this mistake again. And yes, this is a fault in the programming of this program, because how can I not save my own templates? That's ridiculous. However, that's like going into the gym and being like, I have this exercise plan that I'm going to do, and I can't do this one exercise because they don't have that dumbbell. Well, not when we're in it for, like, I'm here for strength, I'm here to do a workout, and I can adapt and I can adjust, then things are a lot less crunchy. When you're kind of like, okay, right, this is where it is. Or you're in the yoga practice and you're halfway through and you're like, dude, I can't actually do this. I'm going to do downward dog on my knees. Like, what is that? Who does that? Or I'm going to do plank on my knees. I can do that. That's doable. And I can walk my bike through this section of trail. And that's okay. Because I'm not here to go pro. I'm here to have a good time and enjoy myself. And
Yeah.
I think that's when we start to get success in whatever we're doing. And when we're holding on to something, that's when things are stressful. And the other thing is that really getting that lesson of like, this too shall pass. 3 more breaths, and I will allow you to move out of this pose that you are like, please, let it go. And then the last thing I want to say is the times when you're asked to do something and you're like, how is that even possible? Those 2 limbs do not.
What? Where?
Like, how does that even work? And that happens when we hit our limits in everything. What we are being asked to do is not always possible because we are not there yet. I used to say that to people in mountain biking. If what I am saying makes no sense to you, just let it go because you don't yet have the question that I'm giving you the answer to. And when you get to the point where that question comes up, I guarantee you'll remember what I've said.
Yeah. All the pieces will fall into place at that point. Yeah. I'm not going to lie. We went biking several times on our vacation, and I love the areas that are available down in Delaware. The state parks there are extremely well maintained. And there's one park that we like to do, but it's got a pretty wicked hill in it. And wicked for me, which is nothing really, but I still get tangled around with my gears. And so sometimes I'm going the wrong way, which is making it even harder to get up a hill. And I knew the hill was coming, but it's been a long time since we have done that trail. And I got tangled around. I made it about halfway and then was like, yeah, no, there's no gas left at all. Like, there's nothing left at this point. And the thing is, when you're in the middle of the hill, you can't recover. You're not going to. So just get off and walk. Stop struggling. Stop making it worse than it already is, and just allow it to be where it's at. And you know, bless Eddie was trying to give me some pointers, and I'm like, no, right now is not the right time for that. Like, I kind of already understand what I did. I got backwards on my gear shift, and I know where I was. And at this point, that's the top of the hill. We're at the beach. That's all there is. There isn't any more uphill. It's done. You have your choice on that trail. You either get an extremely long uphill, or you do that first on the downhill. So the flip side is you get a curvy uphill if you go the other way. And we tend to like the curvy uphill better than the really, really long uphill. And so we usually start going down this very, very long slope. And that's all there is. It's like a dune. There's nothing else. So I was at the top, and there was just no point in fussing about what I had done wrong at that point. I just wanted to be able to continue the ride and enjoy the rest, which is mostly all downhill at that point. And so I did. And I'm like, that's just not the time to be trying to coach me in the middle of the top of the hill where it's over. Yeah. I pretty much know what I did that I need to change for the next time. And I just need to be ready for the hill sooner. And that was the part that I missed, was it was like, oh crap, here it is. And now I'm not in the right position already. And what was cool, though, is there's probably, I don't know, almost a dozen different road crossings on this trail just because of the way the roads run through the park. This is a 3.5-mile loop of a trail. And I was able to handle road crossings much better this time and be in a much better gear to slow down to virtually nothing to make sure there's no car and then pick myself back up again and keep rolling. So I consider that to be a pretty big win, that I navigated that part without messing up and not being able to go forward. So next time, maybe I'll do better at the road crossings again, and then maybe the hill, I'll make it 3/4 of the way up next time instead of gassing out. Or maybe I'll make it all the way to the top. Who knows? But it was a win in and of the fact that I was able to manage parts that I had struggled with before. And I don't let the part that still wasn't perfect, that I still didn't master, get me down. It was like, okay, so what? I'm annoyed at myself that I got tangled around again, but you know what? I just walked my butt to the top of the hill, got back on my bike, and rolled down, and it was lovely. And that was all there was to it. And we had a great time. So you can't worry about those moments when they come. You just have to allow them to be there and then adjust and keep moving.
There's a lot of giving grace and there's a lot of learning. And to be fair, getting advice at the end of something when you don't do it right is probably actually super helpful. But sometimes we just don't want to hear it. I feel
Yeah.
like if we take a moment to absorb, it's so interesting though. Like, again, we haven't done it right, so then we're frustrated at ourselves.
In that moment, I mostly knew what I did wrong already. So rehashing it at that point at the top of the hill where I can't immediately put it into practice wasn't really going to be useful to me. And I also recognized that I was annoyed enough. I wasn't in a place where I could receive the information.
Oh,
And that's the
100%.
nervous system piece, right? When your nervous system is not in the parasympathetic, you don't learn. And it's pointless to try because you'll only end up more frustrated because your body can't receive the information. Whether that's intellectual or physical, it doesn't really matter. Your body is not in a position to be able to retain what is being said. And so I knew at that moment, I was like, thanks, but let's just keep going. I just want to keep moving because that felt better to me, to move and to let go of that energy of being flustered and stuck on the side of the hill. Not going anywhere. I just wanted to be able to move that on and it felt better. And then, yeah, I mostly already know what I need to do. I need to be in the right gear. It's just down to that sort of muscle memory of remembering where I am in the gears and which way I need to go in order to get where I want to go. And so if you're not in the space to be able to learn, there's no point in doing that because you waste your own time and anybody else's that's trying to help you.
I totally agree. I will say though, what if we were allowing, touching on our episodes from actually the one that came out this week at time of recording, the not letting it mean anything. And I am not saying, again, not coming from a place of higher up here, I totally feel you. What I want to say though is imagine if we could be in a place to receive that. So
All right.
if we are in alignment and if we are in the right place and we know it's all a practice, one would expect that we would always be in a space where we could receive. And I think that's something that if you are coachable, being able to be coachable on a regular basis, it's not the right way to put it, but being able to regulate that nervous system and being able to not make things mean something else and just to be in practice, because somebody else is always going to see something that you've missed. And in this particular example, like, yeah, you missed your gears, but I would say the reason why you missed your gears was because you messed up your timing at the beginning. And so because your timing was off, you got flustered. And so actually, yes, the gear was the result of the rest of it. However, if you'd been able to be on better timing, you would have had more space to be able to change your gears.
Yeah.
That being said, it's the same with everything, right? When we mess up in our business, we mess up in our finances, we mess up in our relationship, we mess up in anything. Imagine if we were in alignment and we were in practice with things. You know, I would say that we would be better able to actually allow someone to give us information. And again, I'm not coming from a place of holier than thou in any way here, just a reflection that as you were talking came through, because so often we're frustrated. And yet, in that moment where we get something wrong, even if we don't get to repeat it, that's actually the best time to take that moment to reflect and to get feedback, because then it's there in the moment and you're more likely to recall that the next time it comes through. Again, not saying that that's easy, and when we're not in a place to receive 100%, it's much better to just be like, I am not there right now. But what if we could come to a place. Sometimes I really don't want to be, actually, most of the time. Being in a yoga class has always been something I haven't wanted to do. I haven't wanted to be in that energy with other people. I like doing it at home. I like doing my workouts at home. I like doing most things by myself for a lot of reasons. But one of them is probably not wanting to be called out.
Right.
And if it was just in a practice and I was purely in alignment and I was in a complete learning state of mind, I might be more open to receiving advice and coaching and not feeling like it was a criticism and something that, was wrong with me per se, because
Yeah.
I'm not getting my performance perfect.
Yeah. Yeah, that's hard. I mean, being around other people
So
and
hard.
being able to receive feedback of any kind in front of other people is hard, especially when you know that you got something, quote, wrong, or you messed up, or it wasn't perfect, or whatever. And I got over that in yoga class. There was one of the instructors that preferred to set the class up. It was a fairly long, narrow room. You could probably fit 3 or 4 people across and another three rows deep. And there was one teacher that liked to set up on that Friday morning class when I volunteered. She would set up facing the window at the front rather than the back wall of the building. And the window had nice sun coming in, and it had it was like an etched lotus flower on the window. So it was this gorgeous window, and I loved that. But that also meant that because of my volunteer duties, I was by the door, which is next to the window, which meant I was in the front of the class now because she's facing the window instead of facing the back wall. And it would be funny because people would come in and they'd start setting up their mats, and a couple people would lay their mats out close to the window. And I'd usually have my stuff kind of set up, not in the way, but just so that someone didn't take the spot by the door. And as soon as they would realize that the class was setting up towards the window, they'd move their stuff to the back. And I'm like, you know what? I actually love being in the front of a yoga class because then there's no one to distract me.
Yeah.
I can see the teacher very easily. They're generally right in front of me. I can see what's in front of me, and I don't have the distraction of anyone else.
Yes.
You know, when you're in a balance pose and you have 3 rows of people in front of you who are all struggling with their balance, it's a lot harder to maintain your own balance when you have people wobbling in front of you. And so I used to love to be in the front of the class. It was great because I didn't have to worry about seeing the other people and what they were doing. It was less distracting. And so it's interesting to explore that idea of what happens when we're exposed. What happens when we are now in front of other people, or when other people can observe us doing something possibly imperfectly. And that's probably a whole nother episode that we could dig into in that regard. But I think it just comes down to really figuring out how to be okay with where you are.
I think at the end of the day, what we can leave this with is that this isn't, it's a full on Travis comment, this is not a yoga performance, this is a yoga practice. This is not a life performance. This is a life practice. This is about moving through, doing the best that we can, staying in the best alignment that we can, and knowing that sometimes we're going to fall over. We're going to fall out of the pose. And we're going to have days where it's harder to get things done and days where it's easier to get things done. And we're going to notice where we have deficiencies and where we're not good at certain things. And we're going to notice places where we're really good at them. And it's in the noticing so often that we can find the alignment. That if we're just pushing the entire time, then we end up just pushing. And we don't get where we think we're going to go in the same way.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm in the middle of Slow Productivity by Cal Newport, and I think it's Newport.
Yeah.
And it is really good about talking about that exact principle. And this goes back to the quote from the horse work that I've done before: the slow and right beats fast and wrong.
Yeah.
And when we're always pushing, that's when we're going to make mistakes. That's when we're going to overlook information from our bodies, from around us. that could really help us to be able to make the progress in a much smoother and easier way. And so, can we slow down long enough to be able to receive that information? That's part of why I love the sort of yin yoga practice, that slow flow practice, because I have enough time to actually check my alignment in a pose before I move on to the next pose. And that's probably how I messed up my rhomboids so bad, was because I didn't have the time in those poses to actually verify, was I using the right muscles to support my body alignment and support my body? And if I wasn't, then I needed to figure out a different way to do it. And when we are just flying through, whether it's yoga poses, a workout, or business work, or anything else, we don't have the time to check and see whether the alignment is there for us to know if this is the next best right step for us.
Yeah, totally. I think that's probably a good place to end it. Is this the next best right step for us? So thank you guys so much for being here today. I am Natasha Lucky. I'm a business builder. I am here if you need any help with getting yourself clients, getting a website sorted, have an idea for a course you'd like to put it online. Reach out to me. I can help. I also am a mountain bike and life performance coach, so have many skills in being able to help you move through all of these things that we talk about on the podcast. I've been there, I've done that, and I'm still doing it. So you can find me at Betty Go Hard on Instagram, LinkedIn Natasha Lucky, Facebook Natasha Lucky, and Substack Natasha Lucky. There we go. Just look for Natasha Lucky. What about you, Jenny?
Yeah, I'm Jenny Brandon. I'm an animal communicator and energy healer for animals and their people too. And I help support you and your pets if you are going through relationship struggles or emotional challenges, behavioral challenges, whatever it may be, and help work to get the two of you back on the same page together so that you can have more joy and harmony in your relationship. You can find me on the web at soulpetconnections.com and on Substack, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube under the same handle. Thank you again for joining us today on this wild ride through the weeds. We really hope that you have had fun with us, and we look forward to seeing you next time.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great week.